There are four major Russia interference investigations going on simultaneously. Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller's. Then there's also one by the House Intelligence Committee, two in the United States Senate, the Intelligence Committee and the Judiciary Committee. Meanwhile, we're also seeing a strategy emerge from the Trump universe on calling the Mueller investigation into question. Listen.
You have two indictments. You have another two plea agreements. None directly relate to collusion. And the president says, look, I wasn't involved. There was no collusion. And people are saying even if there was, it's not a crime. You know, at the end of the day, my view is that Robert Mueller poses an existential threat to the Trump presidency. He's gotten four major, two convictions, two plea agreements, lightning speed.
All right, let's bring in our panel, our CNN legal analysts, Laura Coates and Joan Biskupic, and our chief political analyst, Gloria Borger. So, Gloria, the breaking news right now that the president's counsel told him that Michael Flynn had misled the FBI the day or two following his testimony before the FBI.
Look, you know, it's important, and it raises an awful lot of questions about what the president knew when he asked Comey to stay back and then asked him to kind of, you know, ease up on General Flynn. Did he know what was going on? It also raises questions about why it took so long for the White House to fire Flynn, a few weeks. I mean, what was going on at that point? If you have an indication that Flynn, for example, wouldn't be able to get or keep his security clearance
as a national security
advisor. So that raises an awful lot of questions about what the president knew and questions about what was going on inside the White House at the top levels at that time.
Because they knew what was going on, but it really wasn't until after the Washington Post reported all that information publicly that he was fired.
That's right. Exactly. So the story was, well, we fired him when we discovered that Mike Pence had been lied to by Flynn. And now, as we sort of peel the layers of the onion here, we're trying to figure out how much more they did know.
Is that obstruction of justice, Laura?
Well, the idea is whether or not he did anything to influence or impede or stop the investigation. And we clearly know what he did. On February 14th, a surprising Valentine's Day tradition, he said to Jim Comey, the former director of the FBI at that point in time, can you let this one go? Can you lay off this? And if he did know prior to that Michael Flynn was involved in somehow trying to undermine an investigation by lying, it's a problem. But it's not really the focus, Wolf, to figure out whether or not he knew Flynn was lying or not, whether he made wrong statements. If he knew there was an investigation going on, period, and tried to stop the investigation, that is obstructive conduct. That is what's going on. But remember, the end game for an investigator is not going to be obstruction. That'd be like kind of giving somebody a speeding ticket as they go away from the scene of a crime. Why were you running? What should I not be looking at? That's really their end game here.
Because they knew that Flynn lied to the vice president,
right,
Mike Pence. But the reporting we're getting is that the president was told that Flynn misled the FBI. The word lie was not included. Is there a difference between misleading the FBI and lying to the FBI under oath?
Only in a semantics-based universe, Wolf. The idea here is whether or not they made factually misleading or untruthful statements to the FBI. Whether you call it misleading or a lie or a mea culpa, Robert Mueller's team is going to have the same focus. What are you telling us that is not factually accurate, and why?
How do you see it, Joan?
Well, first of all, it matters, given what we've already heard from President Trump's personal lawyer today, that he can't be indicted for obstruction of justice. But the truth is, he could be. We don't know with certainty because of what the Constitution has been silent on this. And there are two avenues that Laura is suggesting. It could either go criminally if Special Counsel Bob Mueller wants to pursue that, or more relevantly, to past presidential allegations of wrongdoing, go through impeachment. And there is a charge of obstruction of justice that has been brought to the House of Representatives before in impeachment proceedings, both for President Clinton and for President Richard Nixon. The issue, though, Wolf, of course, is that it takes a majority of the House to actually impeach and then 2/3 of the Senate to convict. So even though that is the more logical place to actually go after a president, if indeed Bob Mueller will be going after the president. This is all speculative right now. But for a jury or for a judge, it would be theoretically easier because it wouldn't be in the political context.
And the thing to keep in mind here is that Don McGahn, who is the White House counsel, is such an important witness now in this whole proceeding, and so is and the president's personal attorney, John Dowd, with his alleged involvement in the president's tweet, is also now somebody that they may have to talk to. And I think that, you know, it is not as if Sally Yates went down there, who was the acting attorney general at the time. It wasn't like Sally Yates went down there and said, he's lying. This is something, and we've been told this specifically, she did not characterize how she interpreted what Flynn was doing. Mm-hmm. But McGahn drew his own conclusions, as he should have, and they were probably right, which was that he had been lying to the FBI because, of course, the FBI had those intercepts.
So if McGahn and Dowd are called to answer questions from Robert Mueller's team,
yeah.
Do they have to remove themselves as the counsel at the White House and the private attorney for the president?
Well, it'd be inappropriate, perhaps. It'd have a kind of a conflict of interest going on there. But remember, this would be another instance of a self-inflicted wound in this administration. A lot of what's happened so far in the investigation, including the Mueller probe, et cetera, are all based on self-inflicted wounds. And so if you're to have the attorneys who are now stepping into this in the proverbial sense and weighing in a way that now jeopardizes their client's ability to now be truthful or even expose him to additional liability, I think they would appropriately step down on an ethical basis to say, I've misadvised, and now you are in greater jeopardy. But it wouldn't necessarily be required for him to do so.
McGahn separates himself because he's not the president's lawyer. He is the people's lawyer.
He's the White House counsel.
He is the White House counsel. So he has insulated himself from the rest of this investigation.
And what we know from the way Bob Mueller has been proceeding in the prior 4 charges that have come forward, he's using these kinds of statements after the fact against these individuals. So he's been able to build a case, not so, from the original offense, as it were, but also from what people are saying about it. And all these statements that are coming out add fuel to that fire, Wolf.
Laura, Joan, Gloria, everybody stand by.